July 31st, Kelly's getting new hair.
Yep. How'd you come up really close? How are you?
I'm good. Do we need to get you a new microphone too?
This computer is a problem. Yeah, I gotta work on it.
Okay. All right. Jeff, I have to say, you are probably the best proofreader since my eighth grade teacher, Mrs. Werfel. Thank you so much for checking all that out and correcting me on my
I should have
typos.
apologized for being a nitpicker. I hate being a nitpicker.
No, that's your job, man. And you nitpick perfectly. Matthew, you making Federal Way great again?
Yes.
Because somebody needs to. Mercedes, you popped in, then you popped off. Are you with us, or are you just listening today?
No, I'm here. I'm multitasking. I'm a little behind.
Taking a page from Michael Coe. Okay. We have a most excellent guest speaker today. He would be Hollywood Square in my upper left-hand corner, John Davies. We'll get to John in just a minute. Before we do, a couple quick PSAs. So last day of July, crazy, huh? My God, I thought it was just like 4th of July yesterday. And here we are with 10 fingers, which is always good news. So August, if the West doesn't burn down, we'll see. We're going to have guests on the 14th and on the 21st next month. So if there are topics other than that you guys want, drop me a line. Let me know. I'm fairly well versed on all this stuff, as you know. Okay. Let's get to what matters. We have a guest speaker today, John Davies, also from the great state of Hood River. I've known John for 20 something ish years. John came to the Gorge. And when I say the Gorge here, I'm talking about the Hood River Gorge, not the one where the concerts are in Washington, where this is the Hood River Gorge in Oregon. Came here in 93, jumped into the insurance business a long time ago. And John is a CIC, which is a risk specialist. He's been doing this for a long time. He knows a lot about insurance, married 3 kids, pillar of our community down here, very actively involved, as any good American and good insurance salesman should be. So I wanted to bring John on board today to do the 3 questions. And then, as always, the second half is your questions for him. And John is an enormous wealth of knowledge about insurance items. So I hope that you have your questions, because I know he can answer them. John, welcome. Can't quite hear you. Can you turn up your volume?
I might have to get closer here. So I'm just working on my laptop at home. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
That's much better. Yeah. Okay.
I'll speak up.
Anything else about your intro that I missed, or can we jump into the questions?
No, that's good. I'm here to answer. It's a nice small group, so hopefully we'll have lots of time for questions. And I'm not selling you guys anything, so ask me what you want, and then you can get an unbiased opinion. So yeah,
That's
start
what I
thinking
hear.
about anything
Perfect.
related to insurance. Except we should say, just caveat, no health insurance or life insurance questions, property casualty questions.
Yeah. John doesn't do health or life. Okay. Question number 1, Mr. Davies. Tell us a little story about how you helped one of your clients solve a problem they had by using insurance.
Yeah. So Joe gave me a little prep on this one, so I was expecting this question, but I have a good story, so I'll try to share it, and I'll try to make it somewhat brief because it's somewhat technical. But I had a customer, and it's a large medical provider. At the time, they weren't very big, maybe 50 employees, something like that. And we did just a very small portion of their business. We insured, I think they had a manufactured home that we insured that they used for an office. So I was talking to him about that, but obviously I was really more interested in the main event there and all their other coverages. And they had a problem with their work comp policy. So this is a nonprofit provider too. They provide medical services to the underprivileged in our area, in a 5-county area around here. Really important to our community to have these guys functional and stuff. And they were spending So in the work comp world, you get a thing called an experience modification factor. Their mod factor was 2.6. That means that no insurance carrier will touch them. They go into what's called the assigned risk pool. And this gets really technical, but you'll get the point here. So basically they're paying about 3 times what a normal company their size should be paying. And that's because they had a horrible claims record. So basically, they're paying a lot of money, and their current broker, which was a large outfit out of Portland, didn't really have the time or energy to kind of remarket this. So I spent a lot of time going to all the different carriers. I got shut down everywhere, but I found a little opening with Travelers Insurance where they said, "Hey, I guess we could kind of look at this. In the work comp world, your history follows you for 3 years." And they had a good last 6 months to a year, but they had all this baggage that was kind of hanging out there. So anyway, we got Travelers to write the policy. We took it away from the big insurance agent who wasn't doing their job anyway. And the thing that worked for me was that they ended up saving $42,000. And that sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but to really put that to the ground, that is one provider, that's one nurse or practitioner that they could put back into our community to do what they're supposed to be doing. And so anyway, yeah, so that was one of my great moments. I felt really good about that. They were obviously very happy too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
to me, that's a story about tenacity, and we'll get to another question, but one of the reasons that I think there's huge value in working with a human and not just a TV commercial, and a broker has access to different markets. So we'll get to that. Okay. Yeah. Question number 2, as John and I discussed, as I let him know, most of you are real estate people. So John, take a minute and in the real estate space, talk to these folks about different kinds of coverage. You and I in our pre-call, we talked a little about errors and omissions, talk a little bit about PIP. Just kind of give us some general talking points about the types and maybe the levels of insurance, and maybe hold that up against also an umbrella.
Okay. Okay. So you guys, I'm assuming you're all, retail, real estate agents. Kind of typical model, at least the way it works around here, is that there's a master broker or a shop like a Windermere shop or something like that, and you're working there under a broker, and they're paying you a commission, and you're an independent contractor. So I'll go with that model. There are others out there, but that seems to be prevalent, right? So basically, most individual agents don't have their own errors and omissions coverage. They rely on the main brokers. And that's fine. And that's the way everyone's set up to work. There's a couple things that you might want to, as individual agents, you might want to know about, or at least see. You want to look at that policy. And if you work for a reputable shop, it's not going to be a problem, but it still would be a good idea to check to make sure that that policy covers what they call the named entity. So that's your master broker and any individual contractors or independent contractors. So it has to be endorsed on there, and you want to see that on there. So if they bought a policy made for a real estate office, you're going to be fine. But there are those out there that only cover the named insured, which could be Windermere or whatever shop you're talking about. I'm just using them for an example. Okay, so that's one thing about the errors and omissions. And the second thing about the error and omissions is that it's called a claims made policy, meaning that the claim has to be brought while the policy is active. So you go through time, everything's great. You have a claim, say your shop is still in business. You file the claim, they're going to take care of it. There's nothing to worry about. Where the gap can come is if your shop goes out of business and you have a claim after that date. So if you're working for, and this happens, people merge and stuff like that. Or sometimes they go out of business. But if you're working for a shop and it goes out of business, you could have a gap. So the way you remedy that is you buy a tail coverage. Your store or your shop should buy the tail coverage, and then it will cover all things for as long as the tail coverage is. But you want to make sure that happens. So So pay attention and, ask your brokers to prove that they do that, especially when they merge or close. So, okay.
John, what is the typical length, the active length of a tail provision?
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you asked, Joe. So this gets pretty technical pretty quickly, but you got to get it out there. So, yeah, the typical tail, honestly, most people just buy a 1 year tail. It's not sufficient. So they should have options for a 3 year tail or maybe a 5, but they're expensive. And the last thing anybody wants to do when they merge or close their business is spend more money. So that can be an issue. We wrote a tail once for a pediatrician. I think they were delivering babies. They needed an 18-year tail because once they stop business, those kids, have a theoretical claim when they turn 18. So you can get a kind of an idea. Yeah. So tail coverage, Joe, you asked about, I think we were just talking about auto coverage. And a couple quick notes on the auto coverage. Most of you have a personal auto policy. That's fine. There's a little part of the policy that says what do you use your car for, and you want it to be marked business because you're really using it for a business. Most carriers are fine with that. They don't want you to have to buy a commercial policy, but make sure it says business use on there, and then make sure you have some reasonable limits, especially if you're putting customers in cars. I sold real estate for a short while. That was back in the days, you put them in there, you put them in your car because you didn't want them to get away. And, but I don't know if you guys still do that, but if you did, you'd want to have some high limits. So I would suggest you get at least 250,000 per person, 500,000 per accident, and $100,000 property damage. Now, we can talk about those limits if you want, but if you just tell your agent, geez, I want to make sure I have 250, 500 limits, then they'll know what you're talking about.
When you put it under business, isn't it going to charge you a lot more?
Not a lot more, but it's going to go up. Yeah. It's going to be more expensive. The thing is, I sell insurance. I don't really trust insurance companies. And I don't want to give them a way to get out of paying a claim. So, if you had marked pleasure use or the low, which would be the lowest, right? And you would have a little bit of a rate difference. And if they found out you crashed your car while you were in the course of going around touring all these homes, most carriers are going to pay that, but why give them the chance? There are carriers out there that would say, well, you misrepresented this and we're not covering that claim. And so I just don't want to give them any chance to get out of it. I'd rather pay on the liability side of the policy, the difference is pretty minimal in the premium. So, but you can run it a couple ways and make your own choice.
I never have clients in my car ever. As real estate brokers nowadays, I don't know if anybody else ever has clients that get in their car, but yeah, I never have.
Never do it anymore. Yeah. But you still, so the risk is greatly reduced, but you still have a fairly good risk because you're driving around. And because people think realtors make millions of dollars. So if you have an accident, you're kind of, you're a little bit of a target. And honestly, the difference from going here in Oregon, what we call the state limits, which are 25, 50 to 250, 500 is for most people, $50 a year, maybe $100 a year. It's not significant. The big money is spent on the comp and collision part of the personal auto policy, the full coverage portion. So. Yeah.
Hey, John, just under the umbrella of, but he's a different moniker. But as a part of this discussion, can you comment on we folks having umbrella coverage?
Yeah. Yeah. So the other good reason, or one of the reasons to buy the 250, 500 auto limits is that it qualifies you for an umbrella. So let's just talk quickly about umbrellas. I would say it's a great idea for anybody who's doing a lot of driving, or you have assets, or you have rental properties. You've got something to protect at this stage in your life. When you were 20, you didn't care too much. But now we've got stuff. So we want to have an umbrella. Umbrellas aren't expensive. You can get $1 million umbrella probably for, $200 to $500, depending on the carrier. What it will cover is it will cover anything that's underlying the umbrella. So if you have an auto policy and a home policy, the umbrella goes on top of that and it will cover those things. What it doesn't cover, and this is a really common misconception, is the umbrella doesn't cover anything outside of what those policies cover. So if you're thinking, oh, I've got an umbrella and it's going to protect me from my errors and omissions because I'm a realtor, that's not going to happen. It's not going to cover your professional activities. And it's not going to cover anything that's not listed on there. So if you have, you had well, here's a classic one. You've got your home, your auto, and, oh, I had a jet ski. And the jet skis are notorious for having big claims. Your umbrella will cover the jet ski as long as the umbrella carrier says, yep, we're rating for it. We listed it. We know the policy number. We're covering the jet ski. But if you don't have it listed, don't count on that umbrella to cover that. Does that make sense?
So you're saying you have to have it listed as one of the assets you own, like a car or a trailer. Yes,
Yeah.
on the insurance company has to know about it in order for it to be living under the umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you went back, and you have to go back before I started insurance, so you got to go maybe 25 years back, 30 years back, they had what they call true umbrellas, where you could just buy this umbrella and it didn't really care, it covered you wherever you go. There are such policies that still exist for very high paid or compensated CEOs. So if you're making 50 million bucks or something, they've got other programs. But for most of us, this is the way it is. And so we still say umbrella, but what we really should say is excess liability. It just gives you more limits on top of whatever is listed underneath it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Question: If, for example, in cars, main insurance company would not insure my van RV, and so it's with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I have an umbrella with the other insurance company which has all house, other cars, whatever other insurance I have is all with one company, except for the van that they wouldn't insure.
Right.
Or actually, I shouldn't say. There's a van that they wouldn't insure and one rental property that they said, well, it's too old, we won't insure it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but we have an umbrella with the main part of the company.
Yeah. So say you're with like Travelers or a Safeco or somebody like that, and they don't like your rental house and they don't want your Sprinter van, which is pretty common. Then you can go get those insurance carriers, someplace else. And then we go back to that Travelers or Safeco underwriter and we say, hey, we've got, reasonable limits here. Here's the policy. Will you cover this under the umbrella? And most of the time they say yes. Sometimes they say no, and then you have to go to a third party umbrella company, and they're out there as well, and they'll write coverage over anything that has the acceptable limits. Okay. So in acceptable limits, I mean 250, 500 on your auto, or what they call 500 CSL, combined single limit, and at least $300,000 liability on your house. We always sell 500. Sometimes you can't get it. Yeah. Good questions.
Very cool. Okay. From me now, next question. Question number 3, John, give us a couple of I'll just call them best practices that we, the consumers, should use. Most people have an insurance agent, but you and I talked about in our pre-call about maybe having an insurance checkup. And if you would, I'd also like you to expand a little bit on compare and contrast between using a live human like you versus a progressive or something like that. So really just, you've been doing this a long time. From our side, the customer side, how should we be picking our person, I guess is my question.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's start with just a quick summary of the industry. So of all the personal lines insurance, we're just talking personal lines. We can get to commercial if you'd like. There's about 50% of all the policies sold go through independent agents like myself. So we're an independent agent. We're appointed with, maybe 20 different companies. So, we can sell Travelers, Chubb, Pure, Nationwide, Hartford, things like that. So that's about 50% of the market. About 25% is direct writers. So companies that just write between you and the company. So Progressive, Geico, there's a number of others. You go to their website, you call them on the 800 number, but there's no agent in the middle. And then the rest, the other 25% is what they call the captive lines, captive agents. So your State Farm, American Family, Allstate, Farmers, those agents can only sell their company. They can't sell anything outside of that. For the most part, there's some minor exceptions. So each one has, I think, advantages and disadvantages. You could say, if you were just going to Progressive Direct and you knew exactly what you want, will you get a better price? And yeah, it's on order of like 3 or 4% better than the same price I can get for the same policy. The price I can get for the exact same policy is slightly cheaper to go direct. There's no agent; they're not paying me a commission. If you know exactly what you want and you want to not talk to somebody, then I don't think there's any problem with that. If you come to an agent like me, where we add value is if you've got more going on than just that one auto, or you don't know exactly what you want, or you want a recommendation, or you want to know how is that umbrella going to cover your Sprinter van. Those are things that we can help with. The other big advantage of the independent channel is that if we're going down the road, say with travelers, and travelers decide they don't like your rental house, well, we can shift and we can go over to Safeco, or we can go over to Cincinnati or Pure, or we have other options. So I like that channel. If I was talking to prospective customers, I'd encourage them. I suppose it depends again on who they are, but assuming you've got a house and a couple things going on, you're realtors, you're busy, you're probably looking to build a team of professionals. I would hope you are. I do, right? I want to have a lawyer. I want to have an accountant that knows me well on a personal basis, so I can ask him, what if situations and get advice, and that helps. And I think you end up paying for that. I mean, you do at some point, right? So I pay my attorney, I pay my accountant. And I would expect to pay an insurance broker too. So I'll just finish this little segment on that. So the way we get paid, and this isn't very well understood, but I think you guys probably assume that we get paid on commission. So, which we do. So typically an agent makes, the office makes about 15% on a policy for the first year. The second year it renews, they usually pay us 10%. So if you can kind of remember that in the back of your head, I bought $1,000 auto policy. Okay, that's about $150 the agent got, or the office got. And then the split usually with the agent is they usually get maybe 40% of that. So, it's maybe $80 or something to write an auto policy is what I would get paid. I'm a principal, but what an agent would get paid. So I think it's good to remember kind of what, how much you're paying them. And
perfect.
Yeah. Well, there's like full disclosure, in the realm of all compensation, some offices, if we do well, we get what's a contingency bonus. This is what New York got really mad at those some of their agents about, Marsh and those other ones. So if we write a lot of travelers business, for instance, and none of those houses burn up and there's no bad accidents, and we have a combined ratio of less than like 50%, that means they with their costs of claims, everything, we're only paid, maybe less than 50% of the claims. They'll pay us a bonus, and the bonuses can be as much as 5%, I would say, but it totally depends on if you didn't burn any houses down.
Yeah,
there you go.
The day is young, so let's just hope it stays that way. Okay,
it's getting smoky outside.
Yeah, boy, I know. Bonus question. And we'll open up for everybody's questions here. Okay, so the bonus question I ask everybody is this: what is one piece of advice that you would give someone in their 20s right now?
Yeah, good one. I would tell them get an insurance. It's been a wonderful career. And then actually, and I would go a little bit broader than that. I would say any professional services. I think we have a great, if you're a young professional, you've got a great opportunity in insurance or being an accountant or even a lawyer, and certainly real estate professionals. I think that's a good place to be. There'll always, everyone's worried about AI and they're going to take my job. And it's certainly going to change the future, but I think there's always going to be a need for people to have a relationship with other people. And that portion, I don't think is going to change very much. We might change how we work and how quickly we work. We might even change how we get paid, but those personal skills, I just don't see those going away with a chatbot.
Neither do I. And I'm going to add my dental hygienist to that list as well. I hope
that would be a good one. Yeah.
Replaced by AI.
Yeah.
Okay, John, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. Your turn. Insurance questions.
I have a couple.
Just clarification. What is CIC?
What is CIC? CIC is a Certified Insurance Counselor. It's a program much like, do you guys still do like GRI and those kind of things? Yeah. So it's a 5-week course. You can take one course a year. So you have to spend at least 5 years getting the designation. And then every year you have to take a class. And the classes are, 24 hours, I think. And there's a test. So kind of similar to CRI. It's, I would say that our industry, and yours probably as well, because I was a real estate agent, it's really not too hard to get into the business, right? You have to take your 40-hour class, you have to pass the background check, and you have to pass the state test. Once you're licensed in one state, all the other states recognize that license. You just pay a $150 fee and you can go sell insurance in that state. It doesn't mean you know anything about insurance. A lot like a real estate license doesn't mean you know a whole lot about real estate. So I find it remarkable that we can have an industry with things that are so important to people, and yet there's not a lot of real good training. Yeah. So, but anyway, so my answer to that was I'm going to at least do this CIC. I do lots of other training as well, but that's kind of the main one I do.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes 40 hours, 90 hours to get a real estate license. How many hours do you think it takes in Washington to have a license to give a $10 haircut? How many hours do you think they require?
I listened to something on like a podcast on this. That license is fairly tough to get, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 2,000 hours of classroom. Yep.
Of class, isn't it partly mentorship? Like you can work under somebody cutting hair or.
Yeah, like one of my clients so I own another business. As some of you know, it's a sewing business. And so we make capes and aprons, and we service, one of our industries is the beauty school, beauty salon stuff. And so if you go to certain beauty schools on certain days, they'll give you a $5 haircut, or whatever your price is. Very inexpensive, and that's part of their practicum. But yeah, it's a 2-year program, costs $20,000.
Yeah,
and to get a license to sell, the biggest thing anybody ever buy in their life takes 90 hours and a couple $100. So
right,
yeah, upside down.
Right. Yeah, and we're selling stuff that is, a legal contract that's super complicated. There's hardly anything you buy for the price that's as complicated as insurance, that can have a humongous impact on people's lives if they need it. And there's not a whole lot you need to do to get the license. So yeah, so I'm a fan of continuing education. It's tough. You take those classes and you think, boy, half of this is just not resonating with me. It's slow, it's tedious. But the other half is super useful, and you can't separate them. So you just do it, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have no comment on that as an instructor for 35 years, but we'll just move forward. Okay, Chris, you're up. What do you got?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. I've been thinking about getting a boat. This wouldn't be my first boat, it'd be my 5th boat, I think. But I was wondering if it's a thing to insure the boat as being used for part of a year as opposed to the whole year. Because for a lot of that season, it would just sit in my garage.
Yeah.
And then my second question is unrelated. I have a daughter who's about to turn 13, and I'm starting to think about things like she'll be driving someday in the future and whatnot. What do I need to know as a parent who's probably going to be insuring a kid in the not too distant future
Yeah.
about I mean, I know it's going to be expensive and and things like that, but what can I do to set myself up for greater success in that way? Like maybe it's about what kind of car you focus on, or
Yeah.
what, but educate
Well,
me if there's anything to know there.
absolutely. I'll start with the young driver first. So yeah, first you should buy a huge umbrella. No.
I have one,
Um,
but maybe bigger.
yeah, I don't know, can we get how big? So I have three daughters, and I've lived through this pain myself, and we deal with it every day, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal for a lot of reasons, right? One is that it's expensive. When your daughter turns 15 and a half, she'll get a permit probably. And here's the first thing to know is you don't necessarily need to add her until she actually has her license. Now, some companies will put her on the policy as soon as they find out she has a permit. But your legal obligation is to add her when she's a licensed driver. So they might get you a few months of reprieve. Then the kind of next thing is young drivers from the age of 16 to 21 have a 90% chance of crashing. So they're going to crash. You hope it's a fender bender and a supermarket one and not something serious, but you start putting getting your head around the fact that she's probably going to crash into something. There's going to be some damage along the way. So just kind of get ready for that. There's a few things you can do with most your carriers have telematics. So you can either plug in a chip, or now most of it works on your cell phone. You sign up for the app, and the app tracks your daughter's driving technique. Most of the time you have to sign the whole household up, but ask your agent for that discount. That discount can be 20%. So it's worth doing. It's also a great coaching tool because then you can talk to your daughter about her driving technique. So
If it has to be whole household, I'm going to ruin it for everybody.
I know it has backfired more than once. Yeah. How come you can drive like that and I can't? Yeah. So you can do with that what you want, but it is a good discount if you want to do that. The rates are super expensive for kids, obviously, as I said, because they crash. But I think the real serious part about, at least it was for me, is as a parent, you're really concerned. You want them to be safe. So if you can get some kind of driver's training, that's great. It's not always available around, but if you can, that'd be great. There's are you in Seattle or Portland?
West Seattle, yeah.
West Seattle. So there's a driving school up there, Performance Racing School. They have introductory classes, and there's one in Portland for Performance Racing School. They're not cheap. It's $450. But they can put you in a skid car, and that has been a great driving safety thing. Mm-hmm. And then just be smart about it. Talk to your daughter about, let's go check the car. Let's make sure the tires are okay. Make sure they're inflated. Make sure the car is in good operating order. The kids and I see this every day because all of my daughter's friends come over to the house and their cars are beat and they don't have turn signals that work, and the tires are bald, and it's like, what's going on here, guys? If your turn signal doesn't work, you're just asking the cop to pull you over, and then you get a ticket. And if the kids get tickets or accidents, you're really looking at some painful premiums, where those premiums can go up. 2 tickets will probably double the premium. So yeah, so whatever you can do to keep the tickets and the accidents down, please do it. On that front, like if you have an accident or she has an accident and she's a little fender bender, don't just call the insurance company. If it's something you can pay for out of pocket, you probably want to do that. And I would set the threshold at, $3,000-$4,000, somewhere there. You certainly can turn it in. But if you have the ability to pay that, you'll be better off in the long run. So, okay. Yeah. And then you had a boat question. Can I ask you what kind of boat it is?
It would just be like a day use boat, 16, 17 footer or something like that.
Okay. Motorboat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So motorboats and RVs, for the most part, the premiums on those things are not super bad. So the expectation from the carrier is that it's going to spend half of its life in the garage. So they're kind of already built in.
It's already sort of built in.
Yeah. So it's probably not worth taking it on and off the policy. Well, excuse me, you can do that with cars. So if you have a nice car and that car just comes out in the summertime, you can take coverage off, put it in the garage in the wintertime. That's something you can do, save a little bit of premium. We don't like doing it because oftentimes people, they take the car off the policy, but they forget to call us when they start driving it again. And that's a huge gap and obviously a big problem from liability. So yeah. Great.
Just remember, Chris, and I used to own boats too. There's a reason this is your 5th boat.
I know.
Just remember that, okay? You know, best day.
That's why I'm not
day,
looking at something big and
stuff.
elaborate. I'm just looking at a little something to get out on the water. So
yeah, okay. No, that's cool.
Yeah. We did a fun thing. We got a Yamaha boat, which is great. I'd recommend them because you can put your daughters out on them and they don't have propellers. Or they got the jet drive, so it's a little bit safer, I felt. But I wouldn't let them drive unless they got their boating license. And the boating licenses are not easy to get. You can get them when you're 14, but they're kind of hard. But they persevered and got them, and so now they take the boat. It's great.
Yeah, that's good. I grew up on a lake, and I was kind of in that transition when you didn't have to have a license, but then you did, and so yeah. Okay, I want to ask a question, and I wish I could remember things the way I did when I could remember things. But Jeff, remember when you were telling us the story about the contractor in your house and all that stuff that was going on? Remember that whole deal?
Yes.
Can you give us just a quick paragraphical summary? Because I'm really curious as to what John would have to say from an insurance perspective about that story. Can you willing to share that again and then maybe give us an update?
Let's see, to make it quick. So we did an addition. We added on to our house, and during the construction, we had a drywall contractor we call it a slip and fall, and almost 2 years after that happened, I get a knock on my door at 8 o'clock in the morning. I get served that we're noticed that we're getting sued. I've been in contact with our insurance company. We got they appointed had an attorney appointed to represent us, and we haven't quite. I think we're going to be going through discovery right now. And they said it's going to be several months, and it was really kind of interesting. The attorney said, we deal with this stuff all the time, and it's kind of what I thought as well. It's just, it seems that there's an existence. There are attorneys that know that insurance policies exist, and they're going to go after that money. Thankfully, we had a pretty high deductible. I don't think this guy was injured seriously. There's even question as to some of his claims, but that's kind of where we're at.
Jeff, did you have a contract?
Just so you know, John, Jeff is in California.
Oh, yeah. So I'm not an expert in California, but did you have a contract with the drywaller? Or was he working for the general?
No.
Was he?
We were introduced to him, but we were paying him directly. We were paying the drywall contractor directly.
Right. And so do you have any invoice or anything like that?
No, I don't think I'm not sure he ever provided us an invoice.
Yeah. So I think there's an exclusion in the homeowner policy for tradesmen or people working on the property. But it wouldn't go to people mowing your lawn. So if you had the neighborhood kid over and they're mowing your lawn, that would be covered. But if you have a trade professional in your house, they're expected to have their own insurance. So I'm sure that's kind of the nature of the claim is, was he there? Was he a licensed contractor? Is this what he does? Is he professional? If he is, I think your carrier is going to prevail. But it's California. It's legalese, and that's weird. And as California makes it even weirder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's interesting is we learned after the fact, just that this drywall contractor's license was actually is suspended, and I don't know why. Anyway,
Yeah.
he's an older guy, and my theory is that he's looking for a way to retire, and he didn't have a nest egg, and that this is it. And because he's not going to be, our contractors brought him tons of work, and that's all going to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, and and I don't know the particular case, and we don't necessarily need to comment on it too much, but a lot of times it could be that somebody's just looking for money, and it could be that the hospital wants to be paid, and it's not really up to the person at all. So we get a lot of liability claims, and they're generated from not necessarily the person that was injured, but somebody downstream. The hospital wants to be paid,
No,
or the attorney got involved, and he thinks there's a payday, right? And it just kind of takes on this life of its own. Those are really hard because we take them personally, but they're not, right. They really shouldn't be. You can't think of it like that. It's just a matter of the courts now, and let the insurance company do their job. But one of the great things about insurance that people often overlook is that it includes the defense, right? And so it's not only that I have a liability limit, I also have the defense. So in this case, I can't imagine it was your fault, right? So these guys are going to defend you. If they think it was your fault, they're going to pay, but they're going to defend this one pretty hard, I would guess.
Yeah, and I imagine it's going to come to a settlement. I think, what's interesting is our attorney said, look, what he said, when your contractor gets an attorney, because he didn't have one at the time, he said, have him speak with me, because we're both going to be, since we're both being sued, or me and my contractor were being sued. He said, have your contractor's attorney talk to me, because I'm gonna probably have to throw him under the bus. But we'll do it in a way that you guys remain friends, which is important to us. But we'll try to also build a unified defense against this drywall guy.
Yeah. So
it's kind of an interesting look into how things work.
Yeah, if you need to, you can talk to your adjuster who's in charge of this, your defense counsel, and you can ask him, do I have the right to waive subrogation against my drywaller? So subrogation is the person that got sued, his ability to come back against another at-fault person, and you can waive that for special relationships. So landlord tenants often waive that. We don't we don't want there to be conflict between them, or customers and contractors can often waive that. So you might ask your adjuster, but you might be able to force your company not to go after the general. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep.
If that's something you want, but oftentimes it's like, I want to get that guy. I want to get everybody. Anyway, I'm sorry for your trouble.
That's too bad.
While we're talking about contractors, if we could just put a little pitch in, since you guys are realtors and you deal with contractors all the time, doing repairs and things, it's really important, obviously, to have a licensed contractor. It's really important to have a written contract with that person. And in that contract, you want that contract to name you, assuming you're the one hiring them, as additionally insured, and have a hold harmless and indemnification agreement in that contract. So a couple things are just important as you go out and hire these contractors.
How often do people get workman's comp? How often does a homeowner get a workman's comp insurance policy to cover a contractor if they're having work done in their house?
Yeah,
never.
But now that you mention it, I think there's a provision in California that it's included in your homeowner policy when required by the state. So and this is an example of I'm licensed in California. Do I know what's going on in California? No, but in the back of my mind, I think there's a requirement that it's included in a regular homeowner policy. But I think it's only for people that are required to have it by the state. So it might be a work comp claim. In Oregon, there's not. In Washington, there's not. So work comp is totally separate. It's on the employer. It's not on the household. Yeah, it's just not an issue.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So Tian, you got any insurance questions?
Oh, not immediately, but Tom came home with a boat the other day. So my
Oh.
mind is going, I'm pretty sure he doesn't. So at home, I take care of the kids, so education and health, and he takes care of all of the assets. That's our division of responsibilities. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't have the full knowledge of everything that he probably should. So we gotta talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell him, hey, is that boat covered by the umbrella? Yeah. You want to know that. But
Yeah.
yeah. And there's some, I mean, we can spend as much time as you guys like, but there's some boats that don't need necessarily coverage. I think if it's depending on your homeowner policy, if it's less than 15 feet and 15 horsepower, it's automatically included in the home. So like kayaks and small rowboats and stuff like that, there is some automatic coverage, but bigger than that, yeah, you got to get coverage.
Okay, that's good
Yeah.
to know. I think we just made the mark to be over.
Maybe
So
you and
we'll
Chris
have
ought
to
to
look
get
into
together
getting
and do
that
like a
for
boat
sure.
share deal.
Yeah.
I don't
Hey,
know.
there we go. Boat share.
Boat share, yeah. Call your agent and just say, hey, here's what I got, and make them make the recommendation. What do you need? Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, Mercedes, do you have any insurance questions?
Yeah, did I hear you say that that coverage to overlay my brokerage's E&O has to be a separate policy, not covered by umbrella?
Kind of. So your umbrella is not going to cover you for your business activities. If you have if you're talking a personal umbrella, you have a personal umbrella,
Yeah.
and you're a realtor, that umbrella coverage is not going to cover you for things you do in your business.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's two on the business side of things. There's two things. There's a general liability and there's a professional liability or your errors and omissions. So you guys are far more exposed on the professional side, right? If you made an error of fact, that's covers by the professional liability. General liability is think of more your slip and fall. You don't really own the premises, so that's not really your responsibility. You could maybe have an exposure if you set up like a tent at a trade show or something like that. But typically that's all covered by your brokerage that you work for.
Okay.
So you might want to talk to your broker and say, hey, what are our limits? You know, if you got 3 people in the shop and you have $1 million, are you guys comfortable with that? Yeah, maybe that's okay. If you got 20 people and you're all selling, houses in downtown Seattle, then probably want some higher limits.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
All
Because
right.
because those limits are shared by all the agents in the office. So you want to think about that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Matthew, insurance questions?
Please, I do not have, but this is great information. I do not have any question.
What about you, Craig? Insurance questions?
Not really. But I appreciate the discussion very much. It's
Yeah.
I always get a little tweaky about this stuff because I like Jeff. I'm like, we're moving targets, in the real estate business, and people are looking for paydays, and they look at us and they think we're made of all this money, and it's like, hey, we have to protect ourselves, and the cost of insurance is not cheap. And I also have a very strong distrust for insurance companies.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
necessary. At the same time, it's like it kind of scares the hell out of me.
Well, and so John, Craig is also in California, and they have their own universe in Golden State.
Yeah, it is. It's a tough world down there. It's harder. I'm glad I'm up here. I'm sorry about your insurance down there.
It's a bubble, Joe.
Yeah. Hey, John, I have one last question.
Yeah,
and I believe this is a state specific question, but maybe you can chime in on it. And it's also a license specific question. But under the banner of professional licenses, do you have any comment from the insurance angle about people becoming like a PLLC or a PSC?
Like a personal liability, like you see some of those attorneys. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Personal limited
Yeah.
or
Let's just say that I
professional limited.
was,
I think what it stands for. But
Joe's Insurance, and I do a PLLC or a personal services corporation. I know I don't have them top of head, but there's certain tax things you have to comply with. I'm not talking about that. But for example, I know like in Idaho, in the statute, if you are an LLC, that does not give you immunity from prosecution for a professional services violation under your license. Do you have any comment on that? PSCs and PLLCs?
Yeah. I'm not an attorney, so I wouldn't have any valuable comment except to say I think you do whatever you can to protect yourself. So I try to do everything I do inside some kind of LLC, whether it's the buildings we own or, I certainly work for our office is incorporated. So you throw up as many barriers as you can. Does it mean they're always going to work? Probably not, but you do the best you can. So I would say it's worthwhile. And then I'll also say, you guys have this California, we often run into that. Was it Jeff or the other person that was in San Francisco? Hey, these insurance companies are necessary evil, and we don't get, they're all out to rob you. And honestly, after 25 years in the business, some of them are out to rob you. I kind of agree, but there are some that are good. So if you can kind of find one that's going to try to do the right thing, I do think there are carriers out there that are worthwhile spending a little money on. And it's just like anything else, right? You sometimes you get what you pay for. So we could kind of end on that, but find an independent agent, somebody you can talk to and get good advice from, and look for companies that have a good reputation. So those are in the personal lines world, Chubb, going from kind of top to bottom, Chubb, Pure, Cincinnati, Acuity, and then maybe filtering down to the larger ones, Travelers, Progressive, Safeco's, that kind of, on down the list.
Right.
So anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
Okay.
Do you have the capability of selling across the state?
We're licensed in 15 states, but pretty much everything we do in other states is tied to something we do in Oregon. So our main base is here is in Oregon, in the Gorge area, Oregon, Washington. But I think we're licensed in 15 states. So yeah, anybody, if you're friends of Joe's and you guys want to, Joe, you can send an email out if people have follow-up questions and they want to send them. You just want an idea or some advice. It's free.
I'll definitely do that.
You get what you pay for, but I'm happy to comment on stuff.
Yeah. No, back when John was writing life insurance, he wrote a life policy on me 19 years ago. I know, because it's got one more year to go before the premium goes like up 13 times.
It skyrockets.
We've talked about that. Okay. Soft clap for Mr. John Davies. Thanks very much.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really
Super
appreciate
good
the
session, John. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, it is 10 o'clock and it is summer. And Kelly's getting new hair, and Tien's got a boat, and Chris is getting a boat. So I think we're good to go.
I have a quick question just based on something you just said. Why do you even want to have life insurance at your age and with all the other assets you have? What is the point to even having it?
Why do I have it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't mind.
Because you're not married.
No, I know. Believe me, I know.
Yeah. So at this point of your life, is it even advantageous to have it when you have lots of assets,
Well, I'll give you two answers to that question. Okay. So first of all, the reason I bought that policy is because I was married. And the reason that you buy life insurance is to replace your income.
Right.
And so at the time, I said, well, something happens to me, I got this wife person, and that's the right thing to do. And so I did it. And so I've been divorced now for like 12 years. And every day I say to myself, man, if I go tomorrow, there's a dozen people that are going to have an awesome party. So I'm paying for it until it expires. Yeah. No,
but at some point, I don't think you need it.
No, you don't. I'm not going to renew the policy.
Yeah.
I'm 64. You guys know that. And, but it served its purpose, and I bought a term policy.
Yeah.
But no, not planning on increasing the population by one anytime soon, so I probably won't renew the policy.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. And on that happy note, guys, have a good day, good week. See you next week. Take care, and God bless you.